Welcome once again to the BV podcast, your regular insight into Dorset life. This is episode 2 for December 2024. Hello from me, Terry Bennett.
And hello from me, Jenny Devitt.
And in this episode,
Dr. Bennett of Surrey University may have the answer to potholes with a geothermal technique that could stop them forming in the first place.
we hear about Paul Skivington, an amputee who's become a world champion at Jiu Jitsu.
And Alice Foxpitt talks to Laura Hitchcock about the innovative Hinton Workspace in Hinton St Mary and what it could offer local businesses. And Dr. Ian Mew is a hero on his dock bike, the charity he set up to try and reduce the number of motorbike road casualties. He tells us all about it. Potholes, a blight for any road user, and we do see some spectacular ones, don't we? According to an article by Rachel Rowe in December's BV magazine, there was a huge one in a road close to Belchelwell which remained unfilled until someone put a Christmas tree in it. Then it was, unsurprisingly, rapidly fixed. Dr. Benny Tsao from Surrey University is someone who's researching ways to stop potholes forming in the first place, using geothermal energy in the soil to warm road surfaces. A crack rapidly becomes a pothole when it freezes in the winter, thaws in the spring, and water does the rest, and so a pothole is born. Benny explained how the system would work.
It's getting more and more serious, actually. I don't know if it's just the people's awareness of the potholes growing, or we've got more and more authorities and also local governments are focused on pothole more often than before. That's a good thing. And on the other hand, we do see more potholes over the last 5-10 years. One thing that's reflecting this trend is the car insurance companies. So they're complaining that they are seeing a huge increase in the claim related to pothole-induced car damage. And if my memory serves me right, the AA insurance company, which is the largest car insurance company in this country, says that in 2023 they saw a 40% increase in the pothole-related claims. So that's a huge increase.
That's huge, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are various reasons, aren't there, for the increase in the number of potholes nationwide. I mean, climate change, heavier traffic, heavier vehicles.
I guess that's all the reasons. The most important reasons, I think there are maybe 2 or 3. The first one is, of course, the underfunded maintenance and repair of the pavement over the past few decades. Compared to our European neighbors like Germany, the Netherlands, UK government continues to underfund the maintenance and repair of pavements. Sometimes the potholes not a big problem in these European countries because they shouldn't appear in the first place. So potholes forms from a very tiny cracks, and then it begins to grow up with the freeze-thaw cycles, which means the water in the pavement get frozen in the winter and thaws in the spring. With this kind of thing and the traffic load, the crack gonna open up, and multiple cracks, when they meet each other, the centerpiece of the pavement block might get removed by the car that's passing through. So that's the initial formation of a pothole. Normally, this pothole should be healed and repaired when there is a visible crack on the pavement. But unfortunately, in many of these places in the UK, because the local road authority, they don't have enough money to do this regular check and repair. They let the crack to grow and grow and grow. In the end, it's a pothole. So they spend more money to repair the pothole. So that's one thing, it is the government funding. But it's getting better because last year the government relocated £8 billion from the HS2 extension project to the local road authority. So they have decided that instead of having a extension of HS2, they'd rather have a better like local roads for the people to use. I don't know which one is more important, but from a perspective of a pavement engineer, I'm happy to see the local road authorities are getting more money for the repair and maintenance.
I'm sure you are. You know, Benny, there's one, I also wonder whether one of the reasons that our roads produce potholes so readily is the quality of the road surface, the original road surface. This rather rougher, readier system of laying the tar and then scattering loose gravel on the top and leaving it to the vehicles to flatten it, leads, doesn't it, to a looser, more open surface, which then deteriorates more rapidly because it's easier for the water to penetrate and create those cracks in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So the road design is, we do have a standard for the pavement material design in the UK, and that design is not worse than our European neighbors. But the thing is that probably the asphalt we use, asphalt is the like the glue in the pavement. The quality of the asphalt we use, or the construction quality control and quality assessment, that's not as good as like other countries in Europe. That leads us to this very big pothole problem. That's definitely part of the reason.
Now, the work that you're doing, is you're an engineer at Surrey University, aren't you? You're researching what are called thermoactive treatments, which require geothermal energy found below the surface. Now, is that found all over this island, all over the country?
Yes. So you just mentioned that how a pothole can be formed. Like the one key reason is the freeze and thaw cycle. So we're thinking, how about we regulate the pavement temperature throughout the year, not let it to the temperature of the pavement reduce below the freezing point. So we're thinking, how about we use this geothermal energy? Like that means in the summer, we collect the heat from the solar radiation and transfer that to the deeper layer of the road, which is the foundation, what we call that subgrade. And in winter, we reverse this process to extract the stored heat from the subgrade and use that heat to warm up the surface pavement to keep the temperature above 0 degrees.
So you're talking about actually heating the road surface. Would this be a network of pipes underneath the road surface?
Yes, that's correct. So there's going to be two areas of pipe system. The first one is placed in the surface asphalt layer, and the second one is placed in the subgrade, so the foundation of the road. And these two areas of pipelines are connected by a heat pump or just a water pump to circulate water inside of these two arrows. We use this circulating water to transfer the heat from the pavement to the subgrade.
So Benny, then you'd have to have, you're going to run these pipes underneath an entire road, say from, I don't know, London to Birmingham, on a main road. What sort of distance? You'd presumably have to have lots of pumps all the way up that entire length of road, would you? And how many pumps would do the work then?
We're looking at that because that depends on the local climate and also the heat demand in the winter. Some areas are warmer than the other areas, so they probably don't need a powerful heat pump. They only need a small water pump. And we're thinking we can optimize this control system to have one water pump or heat pump per kilometer of the road.
And now, so once installed then, the pipework and the pump, that will generate all its own energy. It'll be a sort of self-sufficient system, as it were. It won't require any energy input from somewhere else, from electricity, for instance.
If it's a water pump, it's possible that it can be self-sufficient in terms of the electricity energy, because we can use some, for example, solar panel in the summer to run the water pump. It doesn't need to be very high power. And but for heat pump, for example, if in the northern part of England, where the road temperature regulation in winter has high demand, that means we need a more powerful heat pump system, and that heat pump gonna need electricity probably from the national grid or like a localized electricity supplier.
So otherwise it would be a sort of self-sufficient green energy system then elsewhere.
That's right.
And how far down, how far below the surface of the road would you have to install these pipes?
It doesn't necessarily need to be installed just below the road itself. It can be installed like sideways, like the pedestrian in the road. So we dig a trench and put the pipe in the trench. That way we don't need to reconstruct the road from scratch to embed this pipe system. And the depth from the numerical modeling we're doing now, it's better to be from 3 to 5 meters depth.
Okay, so if we took a main road, Benny, for instance, then you're talking about digging a trench along the side of the road.
Yeah.
And that will, the heat generated from those pipes at the side of the road will be sufficient to heat the entire, or to warm the entire surface of the road?
That's correct.
This sounds very sophisticated. So you don't need to dig up the roads then?
We don't need to dig up the road. We just need to have some soil as the heat sink in the summer. Because in the summer we're keep collecting the heat from the solar power, and to store this heat there. And hopefully in several months we can use this interseasonal stored heat in winter, and hopefully it's going to be self-sufficient interseasonally. And we have done some numerical modeling, and there was a field trial of a quite similar technology back in 2007. Both the field trial and numerical modeling shows that that's possible for the climate in the UK.
So there was already quite a few years ago some work done on this, but no progress since then. Are you actually experimenting with this system on any roads in this country?
We're collaborating with National Highways, so probably in 2026 or 2027 we're going to have a new field trial. It's probably on a segment of like 20 to 30 meters of road, and we're going to install this thing and to monitor that for a couple of years to see the long-term performance. There's one thing that we're unsure is the long-term performance of such system, because there can be a thermal imbalance over the years. For example, if you keep extracting more heat in the winter than the heat you store in the summer, after several years there's no heat in the soil. So the whole system performance is going to decrease. And vice versa, if you stored excessive heat in the summer and use less heat in the winter, there's going to be like a heat source in the soil, which is also not good for the biodiversity. For example, the microorganism in the soil, not good for the biodiversity. So that's something we need to consider and monitor for a couple of years. And then we might be confident to say that, okay, in the long term, this system also works.
This sounds like an immensely complicated and very sophisticated system to me. But it's not the sort of system, Benny, that's found in Iceland, where I know they've got plenty of subsurface heat from all those volcanoes, which means that in Reykjavik, I understand, they've got heated pavements and roads, so they don't ice over in the winter. So they presumably do not have a pothole problem.
No, and it's a good point that in Iceland they're using deep geothermal energy, which means you have a borehole that runs hundreds of meters or thousands of meters deep to the very deep hot rock of the earth, and they get like hot water or thermal energy from there. It's oftentimes very high grade thermal energy, but it also costs a lot of money. A borehole is very expensive, especially when it reaches more than 100 meters. And the geothermal system we're using here is called shallow geothermal system. It's using like the first 10 meters or less of the ground to have low-grade geothermal. And for this low-grade geothermal, if you want to use that to heat up your house, for example, you're going to need to concentrate this low-grade thermal using a heat pump system. But for road heating in the winter, we don't need the water to be like 40-50 degrees. We just need the water to be like 5 degrees. That's above the freezing point. That should be enough to keep the pavement unfrozen.
Dr. Bennett, who's a lecturer in civil and environmental engineering at the University of Surrey.
One leg, two golds. From a para's crushed dream to para Jiu Jitsu glory, Paul Skivington becomes the UK's first world para Jiu Jitsu champion. Paul Skivington, a veteran of 9 Parachute Squadron, faced a life-altering challenge when a motorbike accident in 2001, when he was just 23, resulted in the loss of his left leg above the knee, ending his army career. Undeterred, Paul rekindled his competitive spirit through sports, initially embracing golf and later dedicating 6 years to coaching boxing in his hometown of Sturminster-Newton. However, his accident had left him with metal plates in his arm, creating a weakness where the metal joined the bone. During a routine sparring session, his arm snapped, potentially once again ending his competitive aspirations. Determined to remain active and engaged, Paul sought a combat sport with less physical impact that he could also share with his children. This search led him to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, BJJ, in Yeovil, where he immediately fell in love with the discipline. Beginning in 2018, Paul competed against able-bodied opponents, acknowledging the inherent challenges. Guard, being struck inside someone's legs, are a major part of the sport, and when you've only got one leg, it's a bit too easy for your opponent to get out of them and score, says Paul. At that time, the UK lacked para-jiu-jitsu competitions. Paul's perseverance paid off in 2022 when he entered his first para-jiu-jitsu competition, the Reorg Open, securing a gold medal. He repeated his success in 2023, and he set his sights on the Para Jiu Jitsu World Championships, the premier global competition held annually in Abu Dhabi. Competing in the 2023 World Championships as a newly qualified purple belt, Paul earned silver and bronze medals. In 2024, he achieved a double gold in both Gi, wearing the traditional Jiu-Jitsu uniform, and no Gi categories at a UK Para Jiu-Jitsu competition. Earlier this year, I knew my Jiu-Jitsu game had really improved, Paul says. I've been a purple belt for 18 months now, with a lot more experience and skill, so I wanted to give the world title another go. He travelled to Abu Dhabi on the 4th of November, joining approximately 100 athletes from around the world, all with various disabilities. Classification in Para Jiu-Jitsu is based on mobility first. I was in the amputee group, obviously, but then it's quite fluid. Clearly, there's rarely a perfect match, so experienced black belts will assess the participants and place them according to age, weight and belt on the day of competition. Paul's had 2 fights in Abu Dhabi, both resulting in submission victories, earning the title of World Para Jiu-Jitsu Champion, the first UK athlete in his classification to do so. Coaching boxing was fantastic, but Jiu-Jitsu has literally changed my life. I'm actually doing it, Paul says. Though the sport is almost 100% sparring, there's no heavy contact. There are no blows or strikes. We tap. So instead of needing recovery time as I would from a full contact sport, I can train 4 or 5 times a week. As he advanced through the belts, Paul recognised the diminishing returns of competing against able-bodied opponents of similar levels, though he is determined to compete able-bodied at some stage. And Paul trains at Invictus Jiu-Jitsu in Gillingham.
A once derelict former carpenter's workshop in Hinton St Mary has been transformed into an innovative co-working space, a community-focused response to the loneliness and limitations of home working and providing an affordable and practical alternative to traditional office rental. The Hinton Workspace is led by Alice Fox-Pitt, and Laura Hitchcock went to talk to her to find out more about it.
So when you're looking at renovating and trying to do a business plan for a building like this, it feels completely insane until you actually start. The biggest hurdle is starting because it's so overwhelming. I mean, if you put together what we put together, and present it to somebody, they put you in a white jacket and send you to a lunatic asylum. But I really believe that Dorset business and Dorset entrepreneurs deserve to have a space like this. And I think that there is a huge appetite for it. It's going to be a slow burn because it's not obvious, and it's not until you step in here you realise what it is. It's almost impossible for us to really showcase what we've done unless you come. And there are some incredible people who are really finding it difficult working from home, and I think that if we learned anything from COVID, it was that we are the worst versions of ourselves at home, and that as humans we need accountability, we need social connection, we need to have a reason to brush our hair, shave our legs and get out of our pyjamas, and that accountability comes from relationships with other humans, and it's too much to expect ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves for ourselves, because we don't do that, if that makes sense. If I'm at home, I know that I can get away with, probably the worst behaviour that I ever do in any day of the week with either my husband or in my home. As soon as I step out of my home, I don't want to be judged by that. I want to present a better version of myself. And I don't think I'm unique in that. I certainly see it with my children, that they are the worst versions of themselves at home. When they go to school and they're in their school community, they raise their game. And that's part of the reason why homeschooling was so difficult, because you were relentlessly, day in, day out. The children weren't having to be accountable to anyone apart from the people that they're most comfortable with, so they can be the worst versions of themselves. And they didn't have the break of that behaviour by going to school. They could just continue to be that. And I'm sure that, the legacy we're dealing with from COVID is a lot to do with that. So for me, I know that, in terms of my work with ITV, I have to go to the race course on the Friday, because if I go in on Saturday, I haven't managed to separate my domestic self with my professional self for long enough to be able to do my job well. And it's a similar thing here. If you want to really work hard and really work well, it is very difficult to do that from your home environment. And the Victorians had a theory about the third space. So you had your home, your work and your club, because they understood that you needed a differentiation. Now, of course, Victorians didn't have as comfy homes as we do, and their workspace was very different. But we are a 2.5 space if you were a Victorian. We're not your work and we're not your club, but we are certainly out of your house. And we're a space, hopefully, where Charlie Luxton's created an environment that is, as humans, it's a nice place to be in. It doesn't feel too exclusive, so it's not intimidating. It's a place where you come in and you're proud to be part of it, and it's nice. It's a nice place to be in. And aesthetics and productivity, I think, go hand in hand to a point. When I'm sitting at my kitchen table and I haven't cleared away the boiled eggs, it doesn't feel nice. I don't feel nice. So either I feel I have to do that before I start, or I start and I'm not feeling very nice. But actually, I can just leave it and walk out and come into a place that's just set for me to work and be the best I can be in terms of productivity and creativity.
And of course, when you're paying a membership, there's a obligation there that you've got to earn that money. You've got to make that worthwhile to your business.
Yeah.
So that adds an extra drive and an imperative there.
Yeah. And hopefully at £265 a month plus VAT, my theory is that is, enough to make you want to make the most of it, but not so much that when you look at your bank statement every month, you go, oh, should I, shouldn't I? That it's, it's a significant amount of money. I'm not undermining how much it is, but it's not so much that when you look at your bank statement, you choke and think, oh, should I? But it gives you that sense in your mind that, okay, I'm paying that money. I've got somewhere to escape. I know in my mind that I now have somewhere where I can go and feel nice.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people don't know that you think, okay, I don't want to work from home. Maybe I'll get an office. But then you look at the office rental and you think, that's ridiculous for just me when I can just sit at home. How do I justify that?
How do I justify
Whereas this feels justifiable because there are other benefits to it, and it's not, like you say, it's not wildly expensive.
And you might one month come in 10 days, the next month you might come in 2, but I think over the year you'll average it out. We're a yes space. We're a space where we've tried to think about countering all the reasons why you wouldn't come. So we've got an associated dog walker, we're putting in paddle courts, we've got electric car chargers, we've got showers so you can cycle in, we've got breakout spaces, we'll take your laundry and your shirts, Michelle and Kate are exceptional in terms of understanding what our client wants, and we've got a printer that prints A2, things that you wouldn't have at home. That means that when you come in, you'll go out having ticked off 6 things off your to-do list, and you'll feel lighter and be able to hopefully then enjoy your downtime in a way where you're not thinking, I need to do this, I need to do that, because you've done 2 hours in the workspace and you've got a lot of shit done.
Yeah. And hours you're open?
So on your app, when you'll have an app on your phone, which means you have 24/7 access. We're manned 8:30 till 5. So there'll be someone here from Monday to Friday, 8:30 till 5, but your app will give you access 24/7. So again, we have a couple of women who put the kids to bed and then will come in the evening and do a couple of hours from 8 till 10, which is fine.
Which is something a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs do, don't they? You work around, you'll work until 2-3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
If needs be.
If needs be.
So it's good that you have the space that you can do that.
The other thing is that a lot of companies have been motivated to get people to work from home because of the carbon footprint of travelling. We are powered totally by solar panels and air source heat pumps. So as far as we possibly can, we're carbon neutral, and that was really important to us in terms of future-proofing where we would be in the future in terms of our costs, but also in terms of what we're delivering for people coming in. And that's really important if you're selling it to your company to be here. The fact that we've really worked hard on that in terms of insulation, how we're powered, all the electric car chargers are powered by solar, all the heating is done from air source. So, it's just another kind of small angle that is important to me. Breakout spaces. So although we're communal, we've created as many breakout spaces as we can. So we've got 2 phone pods downstairs, but then we've got 4 individual meeting rooms. But what we've tried to do is make the breakout spaces part of the whole. So if you come into a place like this, you're coming because you want to be within something. So I wanted to make sure that you could, even if you were in your mind breaking out, you were still within the whole. So it was really important that even if you're in a breakout space, you feel comfortable and in the whole, if you see what I mean.
Definitely.
So, the pods, I've tried to put them in the middle of the space, not on the exterior. But people's tolerance of being around people talking and doing it is definitely different. And we haven't quite, I'm bracing myself for workspace politics, which is not something I think I'm going to be very good at.
Yeah, you're going to get somebody who comes in and talks very loudly on the phone, which is fine.
Well, it's fine at the moment, but...
So how many people are you planning on accommodating?
So our budget is that we would love to have 60 members. You can't really say how many people we can sit here because, we can have 30 people upstairs in a theatre style meeting. We can, we're so movable in terms of numbers. We've got accommodation for 10 people here, so we can collect from the station, do an overnight stay, dinner in the pub, and a morning meeting. So as a farm, as an estate, in terms of diversification, we're looking at what your touch points are at Hinton, and where when you come to Hinton, you can have an expectation of comfortable quality. If you use the Tide Barn, if you use the holiday lets, if you go to the pub, if you come to the workspace, as soon as you walk in, you'll know you're at something that Hinton St Mary has delivered, because it has a sort of sense of accessibility but quality across the whole thing. So yeah, we can do overnight stays and morning meetings or evening meetings, overnight stays and then runs to Gillingham.
And if somebody wanted to use you just for the long room upstairs for a one-off seminar event, you're happy with that, or do they need to be members?
No, we're happy with that. So we'll do individual meetings. We can host individual meetings for up to 30 people, or two. From my point of view, obviously, where we want to be is to have a really great community of members, and that we will deliver events and networking for our members. Outside bookings in terms of, people passing through and meetings needs to sort of be icing on the cake in terms of our business model, and in terms of what we can deliver, and we really hope that for members we can deliver something, like a proper networking business community, but also, a few extra benefits. We're hoping, once we've got the paddle courts in and we're completely finished with the project, as a member, it'll be a really fun place to be. I mean, I think that the being a yes space, that's our key, and at the moment, as it develops, we don't know how the space will be used. So Mish and Kate are just, watching, listening. We want people to come and give us feedback. If there's something that's not working, we don't want to go, we don't use it anymore. We tried it, but it didn't work. We're using it. Why didn't it work? What could we do differently? Yeah. How can we help you as an individual, you as a business? What can we deliver for Dorset business?
Alice Fox-Pitt talking to Laura Hitchcock about the Hinton Workspace. December's BV has a fascinating article about Dr. Ian Mew and his Doc Bike organisation. If you're a Dorset biker, then you may possibly already have heard of this truly excellent charity that's helped make an impressive reduction in the number of motorcyclists killed or seriously injured on the county's roads in recent years. Ian and a group of his colleagues from Dorset County Hospital can speed to the scene of an accident involving a biker and give possibly life-saving assistance to the victim at the roadside, getting there faster than an ambulance and sometimes faster than the helicopters of the Dorset and Somerset Air Ambulance, with whom they work closely. I asked Ian to explain more fully about Doc Bike.
So Doc Bike's a charity that was set up getting on for almost 10 years ago. I mean, we've had charitable status since 2018, but we actually were engaging with members of the community about a decade ago, and it started because I worked on the air ambulance, and we thought that by providing consultants, ventilators, blood, critical care teams, we would be able to help save pretty much everyone's life. And the problem that we had with motorcyclists was that because they don't have roll cages around them, they don't have seatbelt tensioners, airbags, when they're involved in a high-speed collision, the forces are so great that regardless of whether we can do surgery at the roadside, give them blood, put them off to sleep, it's not enough to save their life. And so we recognised that in order to prevent people from dying as a result of motorcycle crashes, we had to engage with the population and try and give them tips and tricks that would help to prevent them from being involved in a crash in the future. So as a charity, we do three things really. We do put air ambulance doctors and paramedics onto response motorcycles, so they are volunteers, they do it in their own time, but they bolster the resources that the ambulance service has available to them to treat people who require critical care. So it's not just motorcyclists, it's anyone who is critically ill or injured, they can assist. We run courses called Biker Down, where we help members of the public to know what to do if they come across primarily a motorcycle collision, but actually a lot of what we teach applies to whether it's a pedestrian or a vehicle occupant. And then the last thing that we do, the third thing, is that we use our knowledge of why motorcycle crashes happen, combined with the training that we've had in order to ride blue light motorcycles. And we're a very research and data driven organisation, and we give that information to motorcyclists so that they're able to change the way that they ride based on knowing why motorcyclists are most likely to be involved in a crash.
Because, of course, motorcyclists are, riding a bike at speed along a nice straight road, they are notoriously vulnerable to being killed, aren't they, if they have an accident?
Very much so, and that analogy of riding a bike along a long straight road is one of the most dangerous things, and it sounds strange because why would a motorcyclist crash on a long straight road? But actually, if a vehicle is waiting to pull out at a junction, seeing a motorbike coming towards it is both difficult because it's in low profile. So I give the analogy, it's like a dart coming towards your face. It's very hard to see, and our brains are designed to find woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, not low profile things travelling towards your speed. And it's also really difficult to understand what speed they are going at, so that if you do see them but you think you've got enough time to be able to pull out, and actually they're going faster than you predicted, then the motorcyclists, we talk to them and say, look, you can't rely on other road users to give you the right of way, even if legally you have the right of way. You've got to be prepared to be able to stop if someone pulls out in front of you as if they haven't seen you, because most of the time that's the reason why motorcyclists are involved in crashes. Because
you just put your finger on it, didn't you? If I'm in my car and I'm pulling out of a side road or preparing to pull out onto a main road, it is hard to judge the speed of a bike that's hurtling along the road towards you, and you think, I've got time to pull out, and you may not have.
We've all done it, and you know, I've been doing motorcycle injury prevention work for a long time now, and even every now and again I will think, oh golly, I didn't see that bike. And I'm the person who's tuned into it the most, and it still happens to me. And with being on the dock bike, which is a bright yellow liveried reflective motorcycle, people will still pull out in front of me because even the big yellow motorbike sometimes can be difficult to see. So we don't pitch road users against each other. We don't say that car drivers do this and motorcyclists do this, because we're very much of the belief that we're all in it together. We all share the road, we look out for each other, but there are some tips and tricks that we can give motorcyclists to help prevent them being involved in a crash, even when it's not their fault.
But of course, a lot of motorists, I think, are actually made rather nervous by bikes, especially if they come up on the right-hand side at speed. And of course, then the other drivers will pull out without having noticed that there is a bike about to overtake them.
And then you get bikes filtering through, slow-moving traffic when there are queues, and that's legal. But if motorcyclists aren't aware that people might change lanes suddenly, and motorists aren't aware that there might be a motorcycle coming down, that's about to overtake them when they're slow-moving traffic, it's just those sort of awareness things that we try to promote, along with a lot of collaborative work with other organisations and doing research. We match sponsored a PhD student at Bournemouth University to do some eye tracking work with motorcycle injury prevention, and Shell Silver has done some phenomenal work in terms of things that we just didn't know. For example, if the road surface is poor, the motorcyclists will be spending more time picking their way around potholes than they will be looking for cars that are going to pull out in front of them, or someone that's about to open their door if the car's parked, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things that we've still yet to learn, but we're really enjoying working with organisations such as the Department for Transport, National Highways, various other emergency services, to be able to get the data, to actually give people hard fact. We don't believe in going around and giving people myths. We're really quite interested in the hard fact and evidence.
Yes, of course, they do need to know. You mentioned potholes a moment ago, and of course that is an increasing problem, isn't it? And yes, we do seem to spend our time both on bikes and push bikes and motor cars trying to avoid them. Now, we just heard a moment ago a helicopter in the background.
Yes.
You work primarily with the air ambulance, do you?
I do half and half, so half my time spent in Dorset County Hospital, where I am today, and then half my time is spent on Dorset and Somerset Air Ambulance. And then the dock bike work we do voluntarily in our own time after that. And
you presumably, Ian, were a biker yourself already, were you?
I'd had a bike since I was 16, and then I stopped riding motorbikes when I worked in A&E because I just saw lots of motorcyclists coming in, and then I sort of had a midlife crisis and got a bike, but then got rid of it about 2 months later. But it was really getting back on a bike. I'm very passionate in that if you're going to make a difference in life, it needs to be something that you're interested in. And I am interested in riding motorbikes, but this was somewhere where we recognised that people like the air ambulance. We recognised that people, even though police officers are the most technically excellent motorcyclists on the road, and they are the best informed because they go to the bike crashes and work out why they've happened, the general motorcycling community wouldn't generally go and speak to a police officer about how to ride a bike, and I would have put myself in that camp prior to doing all of the work that we've done. But with putting an air ambulance doctor or paramedic onto a motorbike, it gives us a brilliant platform to be able to talk to bikers. We are really passionate about positive messaging and enjoying riding your bike. The last thing that we want to do is dampen anyone's spirit on a motorbike, and actually we passionately believe that you can have more fun by being a more skilled rider and having less buttock clenching moments by being a skillful rider, and at the same time be less likely to crash. But at the same time, if we're out on the bikes and someone's having a heart attack or they need critical care, we can help anyone at the same time as well. So it works really well as a package.
You just mentioned a moment ago that you had a midlife crisis, and as I understand it, the really vulnerable age group of bikers are the older ones. They are the ones whose responses aren't as rapid, maybe, and those are the ones you specifically target, or are you targeting all motorcyclists?
That's a really insightful question. When we started in doing some research in 2015, we looked at the Trauma Audit Research Network data registry, and we were the first people in the country to cross-match it with police crash investigations to work out who was crashing, why they were crashing, and what the things we needed to do to prevent these things from happening. And in those days, and it's less than a decade ago, it was older riders on big bikes on country roads. And I can understand why that was, because even though they have decades of experience, I didn't understand what it was that I should be looking out for in order to not be involved in a crash until I was trained to ride a blue light emergency response motorcycle. And that sort of thing isn't part of the bike test. Now, we're working with the Driver Vehicle Standards Agency so that this sort of thing can be included. So if you have a bike licence, you then have to be aware of these sort of things. But actually the demographics have changed since we did that research, and sadly over the last year it's been predominantly motorcyclists under the age of 30 on smaller bikes that have been significantly injured. So whether that's because the work that we've done targeting older riders on bigger bikes on country roads has worked is another piece of research that we need to do. But I think all motorcyclists need to have the awareness of, we put a booklet together with 6 top tips on how not to be knocked off your motorbike, which people can get from the Doc Bike website. But I think we're now going to try in 2025 and get into sixth form colleges, universities, and essentially inoculate motorcycle riders against the hazards that they're not taught about.
Ian, is it? You said that you talked about the twisty, windy roads, and because people do tend to, in my view, and I think plenty of people share this view, drivers do drive too fast on country roads. But you say that's that younger demographic. Is it because on smaller bikes, are the bikes getting smaller, or is it because the young kind of think they're going to live forever and never going to have an accident?
I mean, we know that the parts of your brain that deal with perception of speed and visuospatial awareness don't develop fully until you're sort of 23, 24 years of age. So younger riders are at risk from that side of things. We know also that certain groups in society are more likely to take risks, and that includes the younger generation. So I think there's a number of reasons why that might be. They're also less experienced, and they've been exposed to less circumstances from which they can learn. So it's hard to put my finger on it entirely at the moment, because that's the sort of research and data crunching that we're trying to do at the moment. But we're trying to put together a package that will be able to work with the Young Riders Forum, which is an organisation within the UK, to try and make it possible for younger riders on bikes that they haven't had to get a bike test to ride, because there's a big gap in the motorcycling community where you can ride a scooter without having done your formal bike test. So you just do a CBT, a competency test, and then you can ride for 2 years without having done a real test. Whereas in a car, you have to be chaperoned until you passed your test to be able to drive on your own. So there's a bit of a discrepancy in terms of, you know, being allowed to get out in a vehicle on the road and demonstrate your competence for that with motorcycles. And that might be an area that we just need to work on in terms of, in order to do that, okay, you might not have taken your full licence, but if we can make sure that we can have that discussion with people so that they are aware of why they're most likely to be involved in a crash and what they can do to avoid that. And if we can build that into the system through the DVSA and their testing schemes, then hopefully we can engineer out of society a large proportion of bike crashes. 80% of those people we found in 2015 that were killed or critically injured could have avoided being involved in the crash if they knew about what we try and promote. It doesn't mean to say that it was their fault, but if you know what to look for, you can ride accordingly, then you can anticipate things and then back off the speed, move away, cover your horn, cover your brakes, be ready to react if someone does what you predict that they might do.
And stay alert at all time. That's a remarkable percentage. But you've achieved in the last couple of years a remarkable reduction in accidents, something like 50% in Dorset.
We had, and that had been getting on for the last 2 years. We'd been 50% down on our annual number of people that were killed. This year it's up again. It's not up to the previous level, but we're up a bit more. And it's interesting looking at the demographics that it does appear to be younger riders this year, whereas predominantly previously it was the older rider on the country roads with the big bikes. So things have changed. We need to be constantly adapting how we, engage with people, how we respond to people, and looking at the other things within the road to see what there might be that we can change to make the roads a safer place for everyone. And with the advent of electronic cars, AI technology, driverless cars, all that sort of thing, there's potential we can actually design systems that will make it a lot safer for everyone who's on the roads. So there's a lot of potential to come, but a lot of work in order for us to get there.
So part of that increase, presumably, is because our roads are simply a whole lot busier. And I just wanted to talk about your dock bikers, because what's remarkable is that, like you, they're all volunteers, and they all, like you, lead busy lives as medical professionals. They're all bikers themselves, just like you, are they?
Yes, they have to. The guys that we've got a number of different people. So we've got our volunteers who man the stands and help teach on Biker Down, and they are predominantly motorcycling members of the community who have engaged with dock bike in the past, like what we do, and have offered their services to help. We've then got people who ride liveried motorcycles who take the bike to events more from a display purposes, but then we've got the response riders who are members of the emergency services anyway. They already work for the ambulance service, and they have to be an experienced motorcyclist, and then they're trained to be able to ride on response, so that's with the blue lights and sirens, to be able to respond to an incident. So they're really the sort of like creme de la creme, and we try where we can to make them the most valuable asset by having them critical care paramedics and doctors, so that they really are bringing as much to the scene as possible.
Well, they're remarkably admirable, I must say. And, of course, on a bike, unlike an ambulance, you can't take much in the way of medical equipment, can you? So what do you take?
It's a really interesting exercise, because we can't carry a massive amount on a helicopter because weight is fuel, and so we've slimmed down over the years what we carry on the helicopter, but we've still got quite a lot. To then reduce that down to 2 panniers and an extra box is hard. So we basically focus on major hemorrhage control, airway management, things to stop people from bleeding, and basically keep people alive in those first sort of 10-15 minutes until other resources will get there. What works really well, and has done over the last couple of years, because we are members of the Dorset and Somerset Air Ambulance. We work as people on the air ambulance and on the bikes. We'll be tasked to an instant. If it's in a conurbation area, we're very quick there because a motorcycle is exceptionally quick in getting through built-up areas. We'll get to the patient, we'll be able to stabilise them, get them prepared, and the helicopter will then land. And of course we meet our colleagues with whom we work on a daily basis, and we work in the same way, with the same equipment, governed by the same ambulance service. And so it's the same system, it's just being delivered in a number of different platforms, and it just has additional assets that are available. But it works really, really well, and it's so nice to have your friends and colleagues fall out of the air and come and help you look after a patient. And you have a certain amount of pride in getting everything sorted so that when they arrive, most of the work is done, and then you can just pop the patient off to sleep, give them some blood if they need to, and get them off to definitive care at the Major Trauma Centre in Southampton or Bristol.
And of course, at that end, they're only too delighted that you have helped to stabilise that patient and save their lives. And, you know, they've had that expert treatment on the roadside before they even get to the hospital. This has been such a successful and excellent scheme. It's been taken up in other counties. But I'm wondering, Ian, does it exist anywhere else in the world, in any other country? Do you know?
We've been asked if we would set it up in all manner of countries, including Australia, Denmark, Mexico, you name it. It's really hard because at the moment we don't have any members of staff, so it's all done in our own time. And just running a charity that's, you know, got 7 branches across the country at the moment is really challenging, because you're not only delivering the service locally, but then you're making sure that you adhere to the Charity Commissioner's requirements and the Information Commissioner's requirements and data protection, and doing everything in a proper and well-governed and responsible manner. So it is a bit of a challenge. We like to model ourselves on, for example, the RNLI, where you have the same thing done in different regions all over the country. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get a branch of the charity in another country, you know, in the near future. I think as a priority for us, we need to be able to get funding to get some staff so that we can have people that are on the end of the phone Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, able to support the hundreds of volunteers that we've got across the country, and make sure that we're a robust and resilient charity that is well governed and financially secure. But once we've got, you know, those members of staff in place, so our reach will grow. We'll be able to reach more motorcyclists, we'll be able to be more financially viable as more fundraising occurs, and so that's the point, I think, when we would be quite happy to set up an international branch.
And when you might be able to take a bit more time off and spend time with your family, perhaps, and get some more sleep.
It's getting better. There was a time when it felt like you had to do everything, but I'm really lucky in that we've got Adrian, a volunteer in Dorset. He's started to take over running the Dorset branch, so that then frees me up to work strategically. And then I've got another regional lead, Brett, who runs the Somerset and Avon branch. He's helping me as National Deputy Director. And we've got a great board of trustees that are behind us. So there's a lot of people and a lot of goodwill for what we do. But I think to get funding to be able to have a number of staff who can then start to build the charity, extend our reach, and bring in more sustainable fundraising, I think that will be the day when we can actually rest easy at the weekend and see our families in the evening and that sort of time.
Before you get too much older, you mean?
I'll try to be young as much as I can, but yeah.
Dr. Ian Mew talking about the incredible work of the charity Doc Bike.
And that's about all we have time for in this episode. Until next time, it's goodbye from me, Terry Bennett.
And goodbye from me, Jenny Devitt, and a very happy new year to you.